Guys, Singing here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so today we are going to talk about the good old Festival of Battles mission that has just been added into the game, where you have to beat this cursed event with an Extreme AGL, Extreme TEQ and Extreme INT unit on your team. Now, Extreme doesn't have as much options as Superclass for really good meta-relevant characters. I mean, that kind of is almost always the way with Dokkan. And especially when it comes to stackers. I mean, really good stackers, even for Superclass, some of the typings do struggle a little bit, right? Like the previous mission that we got added was Super STR, and there aren't really many good Super STR stackers. And so there are kind of ways to work around this. Thanks to a unit that we are going to mention who isn't an extreme unit. You probably know who I mean. But I'm basically just going to go over a couple of characters for each of those three extreme typings that can be useful, or that I have seen people use in other clears. And some of those, again, will kind of be contingent on this other unit. So I mean, I guess we could just talk about that straight away rather than I was going to address it when we got to one of the units that I was talking about. But we're talking about Vegeta and Trunks, right? Vegeta and Trunks in the Festival of Battles essentially make every unit a stacking unit, but just obviously not to the sort of insane degree that stacking units would be by themselves, right? Like a unit that doesn't stack with Vegeta and Trunks on the team is not going to be as high defense or anything like that wise at the end of a festival run as a unit that is a stacker normally, right? Because they're designed to do that. They get bigger raises with each super attack and all of that kind of thing. However, some units, as long as they are strong enough defensively, will make a massive improvement from this unit and getting those extra stacks and actually be able to be usable. I've seen some interesting units that I would not expect on screenshots of clears from people. Now, the other thing I should also mention when going into this and building your team for this is remember that in the festival you can bring 2 different items, which means you have 4 items in total, and you can use a support memory. And there is no, like, the mission doesn't involve you having to use no items. None of the missions for festival involve having to use no items. So this is one of those events, like you guys know, I like to do no item runs. I like to challenge myself whenever new stages come out for red zones and stuff like that, doing no item runs. When it comes to this event, where it can take you sometimes over 3 hours, depending on how long you have to think and plan in like the later phases, especially if you are running a slightly unusual team, for an event that takes like 3 hours or plus, I'm not getting like, I don't recommend for anyone. You don't want to get right to the end of something that's taking you like 3 hours to do, and then you lose just because you didn't use an item, even though there's literally no reason why you shouldn't just use one, right? So do bear that in mind. There's a couple of options when it comes to items. Attack up items can obviously be very useful because near the end, one of the tougher things is actually killing the enemies before the turn charge counters run out, especially the notorious Daima Goku and Glorio phase. So something like the Bulma items that give attack up for like 5 turns can obviously be quite helpful because you can pop one of those and obviously then still have an attack buff going into the Gogeta phase as well. And then when it comes to the other items, there's a couple of different options. You could use a Whis, which obviously gives everybody extra damage reduction for 2 turns, which again, depending on how much you've been stacking with some of your other characters or how much some of your non-stackers have gained in increases from like Vegeta and Trunks, having that 40% damage reduction on top of the defense that they already have stacked up is going to be pretty good. Now, you still have to be very careful because obviously in the very final 2 phases against Gogeta and Vegito, those guys super attack for 24 million, which is obviously a lot. And taking 40% off of 24 million still makes it 14 million damage. Now, some stackers can get up close to that by the end of the festival. So if they have any of their own damage reduction or guard or anything like that, then the Whis is going to allow them to tank that super attack, or at least survive it, right, without you getting killed. They might not take double-digit damage, but it will help you to survive. And then for the support memory, it just kind of depends on the team that you're running, right? There's one for a permanent buff for Power Beyond Super Saiyan. There's one for a buff for like Goku family and Vegeta family. There's the separate ones for both of those. It all just kind of depends on which team build you are using. So bear that in mind, that if you don't have a character of one of the three, like say you just don't have an extreme AGL stacker, then your best bet is going to have to be using an extreme AGL unit that is very strong defensively with damage reduction or something like that, and then using this guy on the team and making a team build where you can fit this guy on. Because remember, it's only those 3 extreme units, so you have 3 other units on your team, and depending on who you're running as a leader, you can still fit these units on other teams. So anyway, we'll jump in and talk about a couple of the units of each typing. Obviously, the very first one to talk about is the new Broly. The wiki doesn't load the art for some reason, but the new Broly, I mean, obviously this goes without saying, right? We've been talking about this guy for the last few days since he was announced. Very clear from his kit and everything straight off the bat that he is a festival unit. At the time of recording, because obviously I don't record the entire run because it will take 3 hours, but at the time of recording, I'm going through my run now, and my TEQ Broly, I've floated him off a couple of times because he can be very powerful, so you want other units to be able to get some stacks as well. But I'm up to like turn 24, so I'm almost halfway through the run, and he's already at like 6.7 million defense. So looking pretty good for him so far. But yeah, that's one thing you do have to kind of bear in mind, is that he is very powerful. So especially early on, once he's got those first couple of hits and he's going to get a bunch of extra attacks, you kind of want to make sure that you are giving other units the chance to stack as well. And floating him off once or twice here and there is not going to be the end of the world, because he does build up very, very quickly. So he is the go-to extreme tech unit for this run, obviously. He was clearly designed to destroy this event, and the mission came out with his release. It's very obvious that he is the #1 like go-to that they want you to use for this mission. But not everyone's going to have pulled him, or not everyone's going to have summoned for him. So there are a couple of other options. Obviously, we did see, I brought up here by accident before that tab, there's the new Golden Frieza and Gogeta. Now these guys are one of those units, like I mentioned at the beginning, where these guys are, they're not a stacking unit. So they are going to be a unit that for this event, realistically, you want to be running them on a team build with Vegeta and Trunks. If you're not, then it's going to be a little bit more awkward. Now, that's not necessarily the case as long as you get good RNG. If you have characters on your team that are like orb changing, or you're just getting very lucky with your key placements, because obviously with Gogeta, once you switch over to Gogeta, if you pick up 10 orbs with him, then he has a guaranteed dodge. So even without stacking, I mean, you could get to the point where, you know, you're near the end of the festival run and, you know, a normal attack would kill him, but you can get 10 orbs, and so he's just never taking any damage. Like, that is technically possible. It's just very, very risky. So I wouldn't recommend running any units that are not stackers on a team without running the Vegeta and Trunks, right? But obviously these guys fit under the leader skill of the STR Blue Goku, which is still a very strong lead to use. Fused Fighters and Future Saga, obviously they're on Fused Fighters because of the Gogeta part of the card. So these guys will be very, very good if you have the Vegeta and Trunks backing them up and boosting them as well. Now, other than them, we do have this TEQ Saiyan Day Vegeta. This guy infinitely stacks attack and defense. Now, he's not a super, super fast stacker. So he's one of those characters where it's kind of like when I did my very original run of the festival, I used the INT Broly, who is a unit that we'll talk about here. And he was probably the weakest unit on the team, right? Because when the event first dropped, the strategy was, you know, the 10-year fusions, Super Saiyan 4 Goku, like all these big LRs with the stacking. People using like Namek Goku. But I mean, I had an attempt where I think I had 2 attempts where Namek Goku was the reason why I died. So I switched him over to just randomly to try, just for Broly, just for fun, not actually thinking I would win that run. But the key, what I'm trying to say, when it comes to units that do stack a little bit slower, you want to make sure if you're running this guy on the team, you basically need to keep him on on rotation all the time. Like, you don't want to be floating him off, because any missed opportunities to get stacks, like, he's not going to stack up as well as some of these other characters that you could be running on the team instead. Now, of course, if you are running Vegeta and Trunks for that extra little bit of a boost, that's going to help this guy out as well. Like, that's going to give him a little bit extra. We know that their buff is not as big as we first thought when it was announced, and everyone thought that was going to be absolutely crazy. And especially with units that stack already, they don't get as much of a buff. But obviously, every little helps, and every bit of extra defense that this guy can get is going to be very helpful. So this guy is a probably go-to in terms of the units that are actual stackers. This is kind of the go-to unit if you do not have the new Broly. And then, yeah, other than that, I mean, Extreme TEQ is in kind of a really weird spot. Like, there's not really many good meta-relevant Extreme TEQ characters. I guess when we talk about some of the other characters coming up, there is one that we could mention, but we'll go over that once we get to it. So, when it comes to Extreme TEQ, these are probably your 3 best options. If you don't have any of those, it's going to be a little bit more tricky. But we'll talk about the AGL units, and then there is a unit that we can kind of come back to for TEQ, which maybe could work with Vegeta and Trunks. But AGL, we've got the Scouter Vegeta. Now, this guy, obviously, very much like memed and clowned on when he came out. Not really very good on release as a Dokkan Fest exclusive. Not very good in like the meta that he released in or anything like that. However, he does infinitely stack defense. He also infinitely stacks attack. He is an orb changer. He creates rainbow orbs, which can be helpful for other units on the team as well. And then, yeah, he's a weird one because he's a stacker, but he is also a nuker. So his defense looks kind of weird. Like, even when you're multiple turns into the event, like, he's not necessarily going to have crazy high stats, because he's getting a lot of the stats when you pick up the orbs. So his start of turn defense often doesn't look that crazy, but then obviously you pick up the orbs and it goes up, and then obviously he's raising on super attack as well with the infinite stack, and then, yeah, if you're at HP 50% or more, he gets an additional super, so he can get a few stacks like per turn. But he's definitely an interesting one. Even when Festival first came out, there were some people using him on the team, because, as I said before, people using like Namek Goku, me using Broly. There was like a set like 5 units that were really good, which was the 10-year fusions, the 7 years, like the gods and the Super Saiyan 4s, and then AGL Super Saiyan 4 Goku. Well, Super Saiyan 3 to Super Saiyan 4 from the 10th anniversary. And then that left you like 1 spot, and it was kind of up to you like which other stacker that you wanted to run. And at the time when the event first dropped, people were running a bunch of different options, and yeah, some people had got successful clears using this guy, so he definitely is a viable option. And again, like the TEQ Vegeta, if you have Vegeta and Trunks on the team, not only are they going to have some links, but they're also going to be providing him with those little bit of extra bonus build-ups as well. So this guy could definitely be useful for Extreme AGL. He's probably, I would say, the most useful unless you're going for like the future build, because we do also have Full Power Frieza, but the problem with Full Power Frieza is that he, unlike the Namek Goku, he only stacks defense on his 18 key super. So the problem with those characters is obviously the fact that you only get 1 stack per turn. Like, regardless of how many additionals he does or anything like that, he only gets 1 stack per turn. And I'm not sure if that is enough for when it comes to the end of the festival run for him to have high enough defense. Some of it, I guess, will depend. Like, if you're running a build with Vegeta and Trunks, although there's not a lot of crossover for categories for them and this guy. But yeah, I'm not too sure if only stacking defense on the 18 key is going to be enough for this guy. Because you can't get any bonuses, right? Like, some of the stackers, you can get crazy turns where they're getting like 4 supers, and so they're getting 4 stacks, whereas this guy's only ever going to get 1 stack per turn. So obviously, I should go without saying, you would have to keep him on main rotation, because you have to be getting as many super attacks with him as possible. If you go on to a turn where the enemy is almost dead, then you want to be putting him in slot 1 to make sure he's the one that gets to attack to kill the enemy, because everybody else, like I say, throughout the run will have the potential to get additionals and get an extra stack or 2, whereas this guy can't. So whilst I'm not saying it's like going to be impossible, this guy is of course still a stacker, but it's going to be a lot more difficult than characters that are stacking on their additionals as well, right? Now, the other thing, which kind of leads us back to potentially a tech unit, is I've seen a clear of someone using this AGL Zamasu. Now, bear in mind, this guy got his EZA like 2 years ago, but he is an infinite stacker. He also does give extreme class allies 2 extra ki, which is kind of useful. But yeah, you transform basically straight away into the normal fusion Zamasu, and then obviously you don't ever transform into this version because then you stop stacking. But this version stacks attack and defense, gives allies ki, which is pretty cool, but he also has 50% damage reduction. So again, like a lot of these minor TURs that are a bit older and don't have as high stats, you're going to want him to be on main rotation so he can super attack as much as possible. But on that future team sort of build with like the Blue Goku leads or any other Future Saga leader. In fact, I think these guys do lead Future Saga, don't they? Yeah, so you could just use them as a leader. This guy obviously is going to have that advantage of getting a bunch of extra stacks as well. And then you probably just never transform. I mean, I guess if you really want to, like when you get to the very, very end and you want to make sure that you're killing like Vegito or Gogeta like the turn before, without like, if you think you're getting low on the charge counts, like I wouldn't do it at the start of the fight or anything, but I guess you could transform into this guy for like the big damage, but I would literally only do this in like the final turn where you need to like lock in the W, right? So this guy infinitely stacking, as I say, with these older weaker TURs, you need to make sure that they are getting as many stacks as possible, otherwise, you know, they run the risk of being nowhere near high enough at the end. And the other big problem that you have to think about that I haven't really mentioned yet as well is when it comes to these characters, you've got to worry not just about stacking defense so that you're tough enough to survive the end of the event. It's the fact that if you don't do enough damage, you don't kill the boss and you run out of charge counters. So bringing some of these weaker units that you think like, oh, well, you know, it's fine. We've got like 60 turns. They're going to easily stack up enough defense. Some of these weaker units, like if you're not stacking enough early on, even getting past the first like 10 to 15 where you're like locked to only having 1 turn that you have to beat the enemies, is potentially going to be an issue, right? So this guy can be pretty good, but that's where the Vegeta and Trunks obviously come in with the extra bonuses, because they are raising allies attack and defense by 5%, so that is very, very good. Now the reason we talk about the Zamasu units is crazy. I did see a clear with this guy as the extreme int unit. Now I guess he has base damage reduction of 30%, and then he builds up damage reduction within the turn with each hit that he takes, but that's not a crazy amount of damage reduction, especially when it comes to some of the big hits that he might be taking, especially when, as we've talked about, the end game, like the end festival run bosses that are hitting for like 24 million. But again, with the Vegeta and Trunks on the team, that turns this guy into a stacker, because that's the problem, is he doesn't stack currently. So when I saw him on the team for the clear, I was thinking, immediately my eye caught him and I was like, how is he on the team? And then of course I thought about the Vegeta and Trunks effect. I guess with like double Vegeta and Trunks leads, with them both supering like on both rotations every turn, that's going to let some of these characters build up quite a decent amount. And that's where, when we come back to Extreme Tech, the character that I didn't really think to mention, because again he's not a stacker, is this Extreme Tech Fusion Zamasu. Because this guy, he runs out of the damage reduction that he has for the first couple of turns, but then he still keeps 40%. And he has big bad bosses. He gets extra defense when receiving an attack. So I mean, this guy, despite not stacking, if you're running a team with another Zamasu for him to link with to get big bad bosses, and then you're running the Vegeta and Trunks, because I guess that's the one key thing. If you are running characters who aren't stackers themselves but are just getting buffed by Vegeta and Trunks, it doesn't matter if they're on rotation all the time or not. So like, this guy would want to stay on rotation to get as many stacks as possible, and then if you're running this guy or this guy, they can just be floating, and then every other turn when they come around, they'll link up with this guy, but they'll still be getting all of the stacks from Vegeta and Trunks super attacking. So it's possible, I would say, that you could get away with this guy with Vegeta and Trunks on the team if you don't have any of the 3 Extreme Tech units we already mentioned, but you're definitely going to be in for a bit of a challenge. But at least characters like this, like I said already, because he has his own damage reduction, if you then get to one of the later phases and obviously you pop a Whis to get to, like, you know, to finish off the final 2 phases specifically, then he's going to have 80% damage reduction because he has base 40% already anyway. So he's then going to be actually looking pretty good with the defense that he'll have stacked up from the Vegeta and Trunks buffs, and then obviously having the 80% damage reduction. He should be pretty good because, I mean, if we do very quickly 24 million again, minus 80% is 4.8 million. So he only has to have 4.8 million defense to tank Vegeta or Gogeta's super attack at the end. I mean, against Vegeta, against Gogeta, he has type advantage as well, so it'd be even less. So I haven't actually checked out myself. I should have looked in the previous run that I did with Vegeta and Trunks, but like what a unit's defense can actually get up to, like a non-stacker by the end of a run if you've had Vegeta and Trunks super attacking every turn. But yeah, with 4.8 million defense and a Whis active, this guy will tank the Vegeta super at the end. So it's possible. It's obviously just going to be a little bit scary when you get to that point, I guess. Because remember, he also receives 50% defense when he receives an attack. So actually, he only has to have, what, 2.4 million? Because then he'll get hit and it goes to 4.8. So could be a viable option, but definitely a little bit tricky. But yeah, we mentioned the Zamasu. I already mentioned Broly, right? I used him on my first clear on that team with all the anniversary LRs. Again, he's an infinite stacker. He is going to rely on RNG because he has a chance to get a whole bunch of additional supers. And as you go through the event, a lot of the enemies are pure Saiyans, hybrid Saiyans, or movie heroes. So that gives him the option to get an additional super. And then there are quite a few enemies, quite a few phases, even the ones with multiple enemies, where there's an enemy whose name includes Goku, and that gives him another additional super. So by keeping him on rotation for the whole fight, on one of the main rotations, it gives him lots and lots of opportunities to get extra super attacks. And then the funny thing is, if you were there or if you've seen the run, like my original video, my original festival run, this guy actually clutched up the W because of his active skill. So he gets extra key, which at that point is kind of unimportant. 60% extra attack and attacks effective against all types. Because he's stacking, like by the time we got to, I think it was the Glorio and Daimagoku phase, I got really unlucky with the placement of their supers. And couldn't get a bunch of counters with Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. And in fact, I believe on the turn where I did win, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, I managed to put him in front of a super from Daimagoku, but he didn't counter it. And at that point, it seemed like I wasn't going to do enough damage because we didn't get the counter. And so I was pretty sure that it was basically just GG at that point. And then yeah, Broly came in clutch. I'd used the active skill on that turn because I knew I needed to do as much damage as possible. And yeah, Broly just went absolutely crazy with that 60% extra attack, did a bunch of supers that did crazy damage and just absolutely destroyed Goku. Obviously it helps that the enemy was Daimagoku, right? So just absolutely destroyed Goku. So that's something to remember with this guy as well. If you're getting to one of those phases near the end, especially against a Goku, where you think you're maybe not going to do enough damage to actually win, you can go ahead and use Broly's active skill, and then he just goes absolutely crazy. Then of course we've got INT Hit, who came from Golden Week and obviously came back on the Part 1 banner, so is available with coins currently. He is an infinite stacker. Obviously on release it was talked about how good he was for the Festival of Battles. His leader skill, he has rapid growth or accelerated battle, so that does include quite a lot of the characters that are useful on this team, including both the 10-year fusions. So you can build a team with hit leads and put a bunch of these units that we've already mentioned on the team, which again, going back to what I said before, remember you only have to bring those 3 specific extreme typing characters and the rest of the team can be superclass, so you can put characters like the 10-year fusions on the team still, which obviously is a massive benefit because at the end, especially in the final phase against Vegeta, if you've got your own tech Vegeta and can then just transform and use his active skill after stacking him up throughout the whole run, then he kind of just absolutely destroys the Tech Vegeta in the final phase. So this guy can have quite a few of those good characters on his leader skill, and yeah, he is an infinite stacker. Obviously, once he transforms, it goes to greatly raising attack and defense, and that's available after he's performed 6 or more attacks or evaded 3 or more attacks, and essentially there's no reason not to just do it straight away, and so then you're stacking faster and faster as you go. So yeah, and he even has attacks guaranteed to hit, which is kind of funny because there is one phase against the UI Goku where he can dodge, which I think is absolutely diabolical, making an event where if you don't kill the enemy in a certain number of turns you lose, and then giving that enemy the ability to dodge. Because if you get super unlucky and get like the worst RNG possible, you could literally lose because he dodges too many of your attacks. So that's fun. But yeah, so this is something to bear in mind, that you can run this guy. He'll be pretty decent overall, not the craziest or anything, but yeah, he'll be relatively good for the most part. So hit is a good option. I mean, again, when he came out, people were like, oh yeah, he's made for festival, right? So he doesn't fit onto like the Blue Goku team or like the Anniversary League teams or anything like that, but he obviously still will be very useful on a build, and his leader skill is relatively good for that as well. I think, is Broly on Accelerated Battle? He's not, unfortunately, no, because obviously he does give the extra to super bosses. But the other Extreme Int unit that I've seen people using the Frieza and Goku, which I guess, because again, this is only with, I've only seen them used with Vegeta and Trunks, because they don't stack in any of their forms. The Frieza obviously isn't really doing much outside of like damage wise. I guess if you are at 77% or less HP, he does have 50% damage reduction. But obviously the Goku has guard, gets a decent amount of defense, gets damage reduction as long as you picked up a physical orb. So again, with that bonus of have Vegeta and Trunks giving him a bunch of extra stacks and everything, then he can potentially look very, very good as you go through the event, right? But again, not being a stacker, you kind of need to be running him on a team with the Vegeta and Trunks. These guys aren't on Future Saga or Fused Fighters, so I'm trying to remember the team build that I saw that actually had him on it, because it's a bit crazy. Was it? Oh, it was the AGL. Yeah, here it is. I've seen this screenshot here. It's AGL 10-year Vegeta, because obviously Frieza's on Successors. And they were using Full Power Frieza and the TEQ Golden Frieza and Gogeta, and then the other two units were the Year 7 Super Saiyan 4s and AGL Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. So actually there's a team build with no Vegeta and Trunks, and they used 2 Whis and the Power Beyond Super Saiyan support memory. So the Friezas weren't even getting buffs from the support memory. So somebody used this unit in a successful run with them not being a stacker. I mean, he stacks attack on the 12 key super, but yeah, they don't stack defense permanently. So damn, that's crazy. I mean, you got to be very lucky with avoiding like the supers. I guess for the final phases, the Whis are going to come in clutch. But yeah, these guys can be successfully used, and I've seen a clear. I can't believe, I actually really thought that the Vegeta and Trunks were on the team, so that's pretty impressive. And then the last tab up is just these guys. So as you can see, there's not a crazy amount of options, or at least not a crazy amount that we went over here. But like, Vegeta and Trunks will be kind of the backbone of the team if you are missing a lot of the potential stackers that we've talked about, because they essentially transform any other unit into a stacker. If you're missing like every unit that we've talked about, then unfortunately it's one of those things. The mission is going to be incredibly difficult, if not impossible. But you also have to remember, when it comes to missions for these events, like endgame events, they're going to be in the game forever. Like, if you can't do the mission right now, more units will come out in the future that will help with getting the mission done. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But yeah, there's a couple of different viable options. Like I say, every single one of these units, aside from the TEQ Zamasu, who I just kind of thought of because if you can get away with, I mean, if you can get away with running this guy because of Vegeta and Trunks' build-up, you could probably get away with running this guy as well. But all of these other units are either made for this event, or, as I say, I have seen clears done with them on the team. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Obviously, if you have actually beaten the mission already, do let us know what your team build was, what items you used and when, all that good stuff, and help other people out that are here looking for help in the comment section. So like I say, I'm literally going through my run as I'm recording this, because the end, even the end like 5 or 6 phases, can take so much time with the thinking and planning, and then like scouter, like glitching and all that stuff. Like, if I just do a video of the end of the run, it can still end up being, I think I did one from the stage, was it 40, like the final 10 stages, I started on a stream, and it still took me the entire 2-hour stream to beat those last 10 stages. So I'm going through the run here. Hopefully my run will be posted probably tomorrow. But yeah, let us know how you guys got on if you have beaten the mission, and if you think there's any other units that I missed out, do obviously feel free and mention those down below as well. I'm sure there's I've got this feeling there's gonna be like one unit, I'm sure, that I should have mentioned that I've just completely forgotten to mention, but obviously do let us know down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.